Good morning, world, and welcome once again. Today I'd like to talk about privatization and who wants privatization, why they want privatization, and why ultimately privatization is bad. And I'll also approach another few topics as well, primarily the pending government shutdown, which will occur this weekend if all else fails between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party in their so-called negotiations. But I want to start with privatization because actually all of it is in this large continuous circle. Privatization, the government shutdown. So we'll start with a large topic of privatization and go from there. So what is privatization? Privatization is the effort on the part of those who purport this agenda to take all of that which exists in the public good or the public weal, or also called the commonwealth, that which belongs to the people, and to transfer that which belongs to the people into the hands of private interest for the purpose of turning profits for private interest. And that, in a nutshell, is privatization. So why do they want privatization? Well, there are several trends on the right. Conservative forces stemming from the Republican Party and aspects of the Democratic Party as well, and other forces as well. Conservative forces who abhor the idea of a public good, of a common weal, of a commonwealth, of anything being placed in public trust. There are those who think that everything should belong in private hands, that everything should be up for profit, and who abhor any idea of promoting the common good in any way. And then there are also those interests in this country. There are those who romanticize and long for a return to the 18th century and beyond, and before that time, the medieval period, where there was no public good. There was no public interest. Everything belonged in private hands. Now let's make connections here and think about this carefully. So let's go into what is the public good? What is the common weal? What is this commonwealth that belongs to the people that these interests abhor? Well, let's just get into that. What is the public good? The public good includes the airwaves, which belong to the people. It includes Social Security. It includes public education. It includes our own government, which is ours and which belongs to us, despite, the actions of many of those who represent us and who think that they work for corporate interest instead of for the interest of the people. The public good includes the roads, the police precincts, the firehouses, the parks, the national parks. All of these things are part of the common good. The commonwealth are part of the public good. They belong to all of us collectively. And this idea is abhorrent to some people. They believe that they should be able to profit from whatever they can in whichever way they can. And they long for the days, as I said, in the 18th century and in the medieval period, when there were private roads and private parks and private hospitals, and if you wanted an education, period, then it was up to your wealthy family to provide you with a private tutor, because there was no such thing as a public education. So everyone who got educated was educated because they could afford it. And those who could not afford to be educated, well, they just made their way to the fields to work for the benefit and the interest of those who could afford to do otherwise, right? There were no private parks. Private parks belonged to individuals, and you had to pay a tax to go through the park or to go on the road. There were no public hospitals, unless someone opened a charity hospital, All of these things were for profit and belonged in the hands of wealth and wealthy interests, right? And wealthy individuals. This is privatization. This is the ideal picture which certain interests on the right, certain conservative interests, long for. They long for a return to those times when everything under God's sun was up for profit, was up to be exploited, right? So let's dabble this and paint with a broad brush and get into some other issues related to privatization, right? Let's talk about the fight over public employees and the rights of collective bargaining, right? Because that's also a fight over privatization, right? You have people working for the benefit. First of all, there are those interests, again, who don't believe that we need such things as social services. They believe that social work is an unnecessary thing, that's just an added luxury for, I guess, lazy people, right? They don't believe in social work. They don't believe in public education. And so these things abhor them. And the idea that, all of this takes place because it is compounded within the government, that the government is entrusted with delivering such services, is totally abhorrent to them. They don't believe the government should be involved in social work or public education or any other goods and services. And again, police forces. There was a time when there were private police forces, right? When police forces and private armies belonged to wealthy individuals, the idea that police precinct is a public institution, right? That it is there to serve all of us and not just the wealthy elite is a new idea. And it's a new idea that is abhorred by some people, right? So this is all privatization. And this is all what the fight is over in terms of whether it's going to remain public and in the hands of the people, or whether it's going to become private and privatized and therefore exploitable, so that people can make money off of it, right? So this is the whole idea, and this is where we get into the idea of the fight over collective bargaining rights, so that public employees cannot be exploited, that they can receive fair wages, and that also a fight over lifting the wages for all workers, because when public workers receive a fair deal, then everyone receives a fair deal. Now let's look also at the government shutdown, right? This government shutdown that's pending this weekend is totally an extension of this fight over privatization. What those in power in conservative forces are looking to do is to make conditions so unbearable in the country that they can move in. Because, see, once they move out once they move out public interest, once they get rid of the public good, it's not going to revert to anything that's not monopolistic or capitalistic. When they get rid of the public good, when they get rid of public interest and public goods, it's going into the hands of corporate interest and corporate goods and the wealthy elite. So when they move social services, when they move public education out of the public good, then they're going to bring in their wealthy elite corporate friends to take over. And this is their plan. And this is what they think should be the model for all of us. So this is our choice, right? We can have public interest that benefit the whole of humanity and the citizenry in this country, or we can have corporate interest and the interest of the wealthy elite who are interested in making profits and who care little about human rights, civil rights, social responsibility in any way. As you see in the past 8 years of the Bush administration, right, where corporatism and corporate elitism was championed in every breath, civic responsibility, social responsibility, and human rights were trampled into the mud. And that is where we have to make our decision. Are we interested in civic, social, and human rights? Or are we interested in profit for some? Thank you.